everybody. Welcome to another thrilling episode of Comic Book Gene Pool on Chris Anderson Comics. We have Adam Lemnah back. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Took us a second to be able to get back and talk about this because we had Baltimore Comic-Con, and then you were at, what were you at?
SPX.
SPX,
Yeah,
that's
man.
right.
It was awesome.
It was awesome. It was awesome to be able to see you a day before because it was
Totally.
SPX was in Bethesda and Baltimore is in Baltimore,
Yeah.
which isn't too far away from each other. So you had a day and we got to hang out, which was cool.
Really fun. Next year, Eli and I were talking, hopefully next year we can do both, back and forth.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because how would you do that? That's interesting. You'd have to switch off days, I guess, or something.
Yeah, I think it would be like Cosmic Lion at both, and then just switch back and forth on days.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
It'd be really fun, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so for your book that you wanted to talk about, you picked Savage Sword of Conan, issue number 4. You just told me before we went live that you don't actually own the magazine version of it. This is the first time you've seen this cover.
I have the Dark Horse Comics collection, and it's really nice. I mean, I love these Dark Horse collections, and I have many issues of Savage Sword, but this isn't one that I've been able to find in the wild.
Right.
So,
well,
pity because this is an amazing issue.
Yeah, well, let's just dive right into it. First of all, you got a Boris cover.
Yeah, man.
Which is super cool.
Just, one of those like super brutal covers too, man.
Yeah.
Just metal. Love it.
Yeah, I guess these guys, what were they using, like egg tempera or something to get these like muted colors? I'm not sure exactly what they used.
Yeah, I don't know either, but it just looks so good. I mean, the reds really pop. The against the skin tones and stuff. It's really nice.
Man. Yeah, that is really cool. All right, so you kind of actually do get a preview of what's going to happen in the issue with him fighting this sort of ape man, while this woman with a chained nipple covers, connecting nipple tassels over here.
I mean, a staple of Savage Sword of Conan.
Like, get over here. They were creative, that's for sure. This issue, so you probably don't have that, but what this issue also has is a Richard Corbin Conan collection.
Ooh, I did not realize that was in here.
Yeah, so the very first inside cover is a Richard Corbin Conan drawing from the Scarlet Citadel.
I didn't even know that was in this issue. I've seen this image before, but yeah, I didn't know it was in this issue. That's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. There's some more in the back too, which is cool. We'll get to those. So this issue is drawn by John Buscema and inked, where is it?
Alfredo Alcala.
There you go. Yep. And it's super interesting. It's super interesting because this is, so I haven't read a lot of Conan. This is actually probably the first, well, I have one of the collections, but it's because it's got the Zafino stuff in it.
Sure.
And I haven't really read it. I've just like drooled over the artwork. So this is the first time I actually read a Conan issue. And I'm like, John Buscema is one of like my favorite artists from the old Marvel era. I obviously with How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, but my first comics that I found as a kid were my cousin's like issues of Thor, probably like 130 something, and at that time Kirby was off and he was taking over, and just like the line work in his drawing is just stellar. And it is so strange to see somebody else inking him like this, because it loses a lot of the stuff that John would normally bring to it when he inks it, like his style, facial style and stuff. But then again, it, because most of this looks like it's done with a nib.
Yeah.
Maybe all of it is done with a nib, except for maybe filling in some blacks here and there.
Yeah, I think it's mostly nib work on this one for sure. I mean, that was one of the things that initially actually drew me to this story, Iron Shadows in the Moon. Because I like to use, I mean, like I do use brush, but I think I said when we were talking about Relic Hunter, I use a lot of microns as well. And and also a nib. So
right. Yeah. And it's just a trip to see how much an inker can influence the pencils.
Oh, absolutely, man. And Alcala's like he's so incredible. He and John Buscema had such a great relationship and worked on so many issues together, and they were just so simpatico when it comes to this sort of thing. I think that they both had a real affinity for sword and sandal comics in general, and you know, the figure work that goes along with it, and the atmosphere that you're able to create.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So okay, so going in, you can just kind of start to see like how different it is. Now you can see John's face in here a bit, but you know, if he had been inking it, it would have been real black and not so, you know, hatchy in there. But it's really a cool style. A lot of this stuff, we talked about this before a little bit when I first picked it up. A lot of it is very much reminds me of like Franklin Booth.
Oh, without a doubt. You can see that Franklin Booth had a huge influence on Alcala, I'm sure, and on Buscema, I'm sure. Absolutely. But I mean, you know, what we're seeing here is just, I don't know, it's next level across the board. And so much of this, the imagery from this story makes it into, like, influenced how I wanted to tell the story in Relic Hunter, and really, you know, influenced me graphically and visually for how I wanted to attack Relic Hunter when I was drawing it.
Sure. So the story kind of starts out with this woman being chased through marshes by this guy.
Right.
Can't remember his name right now. Anyway, and as you know,
Amaroth.
As he's about to, you know, she injures him a little bit, and then, you know, he subdues her and is going to have his kind of way with her. When out of the marshes comes Conan.
And that's really, I mean, like, this really had a huge influence on me. I mean, I love the idea of starting in the middle of things and starting with an action sequence and you know, like setting up the environment, but also, you know, we're already moving from the very beginning, you know?
Yeah. And Conan has actually been looking for this guy because Conan was part of a band of sort of mercenaries, right? Before in the story before this. And this guy took to slaughtering all of them. And Conan was the sole survivor, living in these swamps for a while after it, and
out for revenge.
Yeah.
Surely it's the devils of vengeance that have delivered you to me. Yeah, man.
Amazing. Look at these reeds and stuff too, and like just the way he handles the hair, you know.
And the water, man. I mean, it looks like he's stepping. You get just like a little glimpse of what's beneath the water there. You can tell that it's, you know, it's not very deep, and you can feel the reeds in the water here, you know. And it's really interesting too. I mean, I think the face of the girl here, you know, when I first read this story, it really reminded me of like an Art Adamsy kind of face here that she has. And that's another sort of thing, you know, that I love to see is, you know, potentially maybe it had some influence that we don't even know about, you know, or just Buscema and Alcala in general.
Yeah, you can see the line trace. You know, this line work is also very reminiscent of Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein work, you know, and just the detail and the way he handles the cross. And I'm sure that all draws a line back to Franklin Booth, who was a master of the quill, who didn't, when he was young and saw etchings, he thought that they were done with a quill, which is insane. There weren't.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's kind of, you know, before I knew what like wood etchings were, I mean, I kind of felt the same way. And I've always been drawn to this etched style. And so seeing this story, it really connected with me, like, on a deep level. It was something that I really enjoyed from the very beginning.
Right. Yeah. This is a texture.
Out, you know, because
it absolutely does.
You know, a lot of the other stories in here, I mean, like, there are other John Buscema drawn Conan stories in here, but there's also in this collection, there's also Barry Windsor Smith as well, and that's sort of what they started the book with. So, like, you're going through Barry Windsor Smith and you get very used to his style, and then you see this and you're like, wow, this is completely different.
Right. So he takes this guy out, and now this girl's kind of left and is like, wait, you can't just leave me here, you know?
Right.
So he's got this boat, and they get on it and they start heading. They don't really know where they're heading. Turns out that she was sold by her father.
And followed by Shah Amaroth out into, I guess, for nefarious purposes.
Yes.
Out into the reeds.
Look how beautiful that face is, that profile.
Oh,
man.
The
way he handles that.
Just all of the facial expressions on everybody's faces in this story. And it's 3 parts. I mean, it's a fairly long story for an issue of Savage Sword. You know, there usually is one story that's a little bit longer than others, but this one is fairly long, and I don't feel like there's any part of it that's rushed at all. I don't ever get the sense that they're not taking their time with this. And okay, so where were we here?
Well, I was just about to
pull up the Franklin Booth one.
Yeah, so I was just about to point out that really, like, you can see, here's Franklin Booth. I just picked this up when we were in Baltimore.
Oh yeah.
And you can really see how he renders the clouds here, and you know, you can see the style coming through in the clouds in this thing, and then like the way he handles the atmospheric perspective and everything. It's just gorgeous.
I wonder if that was something that they talked about before they did this story. It's always been, you know, obviously it's so difficult to track down any information about any of these stories.
Yeah, you know? yeah, for sure. I think it's just the inking style. You know, I love it. I'm all about it. You know, I try to implement those things into my work too, because they're just gorgeous. They're just,
and it's also, I mean, like, it's such an interesting way to handle like silhouettes and clouds, and it gives, you know, you're able to move quickly and do these sorts of things, but they still have texture and feel, and it gives more, I don't know, it gives more life to the image, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we turn the page here, this middle frame, this middle panel here, is one that was a huge influence on Relic Hunter as well. This as he's rowing through kind of outer space, it was like, man, if they can put Conan in, you know, outer space like this, I can do the same thing, man.
Totally. Yeah, you even pushed it even more.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, like, that's, you know, but it's such a wild and psychedelic image to have in there, and one that, like, you know, he's just rowing through the reeds. You know what I mean? It's not a particularly, like, they're just talking. And it's such an interesting way to handle just sort of like a talking head scene.
Yeah, it is. It's a really cool choice. So they wind up on this island, huh?
Yep. And Conan, as usual, he's in charge even when he doesn't know where the hell he is, and is able to protect her despite running into some danger almost right away.
Like a giant parrot.
Like a giant parrot, exactly. And rocks being thrown at them, and
mysterious rock.
It's cut in a huge block. A strange thing to find on an island that's supposed to be uninhabited.
Oh my gosh. What's going to happen?
Oh, who knows?
So again,
it's really cool. I mean, like, you go from this like sort of reedy environment, into this jungle, and they are straight up in the jungle right away.
Yeah. And the way that he handles the bark of the trees and everything is just really cool.
And yet it doesn't take away from the figures either. He does things like on the right-hand page here, he's got in that top right panel, there's so many textures for the trees and the bushes and everything like that. And yet he still leaves white around the characters. And it doesn't feel like you're not getting what he's doing. It makes total sense, but it also, it doesn't look out of place.
Yeah.
It's like mist or something like that.
Right. And real control of the line weight of the nib to give the tree the bark this sort of, real woody feel.
And obviously there's tons of things that they're pulling, from like Tarzan, the way that they're orienting the trees and the way that they're placing things in the foreground in front of the characters and behind them in order to give 3 dimensions in the space.
Yeah.
I also think it's really fascinating too, this right-hand page, the number of panels that are on the page. I mean, it's a 7-panel page, and that I guess it's panel 6, the top of the this bottom one? Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How small it is, but he went for like a wider screen moment there, which is really, again, he's got great texture in there, but he puts the figures in a place where you can actually see them moving, and they're moving. That's the other thing too.
Yeah.
There's action all throughout.
Yeah, he starts out with this close-up, and then they're looking off to the right, so they're leading your eye here, and then he goes to this small full figure panel where he does this nice framing, like you had said, and then they kind of are looking forward, but down to the right, so you can follow it here. The branches are following you here. They're looking this direction. Now they're looking this way. Now they're running this way, and then she's like, in the name of Mitra, look. And beckoning you to turn the page.
Yeah, man. And like a perfect edit in a film. You know what I mean? You're seeing the reaction to what they're seeing before you actually see what it is that they're seeing. And so it builds tension when you're reading the story, and then the page turn is the payoff. And what a payoff, man.
Yeah. Oh, monster masks for every occasion. Perfect timing.
Amazing.
Dude, that devil is great. It's got like a pig face.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing.
Now, check that out.
And here we go, man. I mean, like, ancient temple hidden in the jungle. It's again Franklin Booth all over this,
Yeah.
And of course, Conan finds something like this. He's not just going to leave it alone. They're not just going to walk away.
He's got to go poke. They run into these giant guys that they turn out to be kind of statues, but they're so lifelike.
And even they marvel at it. They're like, "Who are these people? They look so real."
Right. And then they come out and they kind of climb this mountain up to the highest part just so they can see what's going on. And then Off in the distance, they see a sail.
And you know that something's up.
Yeah. So they go back and they spend the night in the temple, and she has these crazy visions of these things.
And she beholds again this great hall, not crumbled now, but towering and massive, with green and scarlet parrots fluttering among its stone columns.
God.
It's awesome, man. And I mean, like, just like that, you're back in time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's time for a flashback, and you're going to get the story of these people who have been here before. And there's, of course, you know, all these like stunted, weird looking dudes. And of course, a wizard. There's got to be a wizard.
And I love how he handled the face here with the inking, like going around the chin and things like that. Everything is sort of like a double or triple or quadruple lines, so it just sort of makes a like a focus thing, you know.
Totally, absolutely. I mean, that's the anchor image for the page for sure.
Yeah.
And it's so cool too, because I mean, like, it's not, you know, obviously it's something where they've already got a number of panels in here on this page. They're doing sort of a almost a filmic kind of edit with these 4 tall panels in a row, and then in this bottom panel you have a number of images that are sort of overlapping, and you see her reaction to what she's dreaming, and that's so cool to me, man.
Yeah.
And again, you know, you see them, so she's asleep and she's seeing this story, and then the statues come to life, and we got another fight happening.
Yeah, they kind of book it out of here, right?
Yeah, man.
They're like, screw that.
We don't want to fight anything like this. No.
And then did something happen up on the ridge here?
They see that the ship has come closer.
And here it finally lands.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this is such a great image of these pirates getting off of these boats. Like, this guy's all hunchback. The whisper, pirates.
And they're like, there's a dude that's like huge, you know, and there's like, you know, guys who look like they could be like, you know, from all over the place. It's just, and they know that they have to hide because it's a full moon and they're going to be seen. And they realize that they're on these people's island.
Yeah.
Of course, Conan knows that it's Hyrcanian by the rigging.
Yeah, of course. And he's not even messing around. He just goes all out.
Yep.
And he's like, well, all right, I'm going to fight your captain, and I'm going to lead you, right?
Because, I mean, like, he was a mercenary, and he was head of the mercenaries before. So, you know, he's not afraid. He's fucking Conan, man.
And he takes him out, all right, stabs him right through the gut.
And a giant gut it is. It's fantastic.
And then they knock him out with a sling. Look at this.
Oh my God, this is amazing. This is why I would love to have this particular issue, because none of that stuff is in the Dark Horse reprint. So, and that's the type of stuff that I love seeing in these books.
Oh my God.
Wow, that's so cool, great. Man.
Bruce Lee just died. Farewell to the Dragon. Wow.
The memorial film book. I love it.
Amazing. Planet of the Apes posters.
Incredible. Exactly. I mean, like, let's be honest. If you're reading this, you definitely want a Planet of the Apes poster.
You know, like, getting these old comics and looking at the ads is like half the fun of it.
Oh, totally, man.
These Planet of the Apes paintings are awesome. They're not photos, they're paintings.
No, yeah.
And this giant, you know, glow in the dark model kit of like Dracula and the werewolf. They're 69 cents.
Man, all you had to do was skip lunch for a few days and boom.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Lunch was probably a.
Yeah, that's true. Back then, yeah.
But all right, here we go. Let's back to the story.
And so we're into the haunting and the horror. And one thing that I absolutely love about this page is that he's allowing himself to go like full on cartoony in this with the faces of the bad guys.
Yeah.
You know, it's so good, and every face is like a different kind of rictus smile of like just evil, crazy pirate action.
Yeah, I love it.
And so, of course, these guys, you know, this man you just struck down by rights is by rights our new captain. So now Conan's in charge of these guys, and yet they are going to take him prisoner and take him further into the jungle. And I guess we're going to find out what happened at that temple, huh?
Yeah, they've kind of hogtied him on this stake.
Such a great image too, man.
Such a master of framing, using these trees to frame everything and leading your eye.
That's something that really comes through in this, is that it's such a clear read from panel to panel to panel. There are devices in every single panel that are leading your eye from one to the next to the next to the next. And as a young cartoonist, because I got this before I started cartooning, and this is something that I studied all the time, and it made such a huge impression on me in terms of like, how am I going to tell a story? How am I going to lay out a page so that people easily can follow what's going on?
Yep. Yeah. Now I think a lot of younger cartoonists don't take that kind of thing into account as much as they should, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's really difficult because for me, it's something that I think about a lot, because when I'm editing films, one of the things that we think about a lot is like geography and flow and pacing and things like that. And that is sort of analogous to the way that you lay out a page and lead the eye through it. That dictates the pace at which you're going to read things. And it also helps. It helps make the story more accessible. So for me, I definitely, you know, I love reading about this stuff and seeing this kind of thing, and it sort of like imprinted itself on me, I guess. You know, it's something that everything, and you can see everything in this story, from the design of the girl, which of course influenced the dancing girl in my story. You know, I mean, there's so many things in this story that influenced me, and it's such a, you know, I don't know, when you look at this, it's flawless. There's not a single panel that you see in this story that doesn't move the story forward, that doesn't give you some kind of character moment or an expression, or move your eye across the page. Everything is functioning not just as art but also as storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And so we find out, she who had been the daughter of a king, yet had never known kindness from any of her own kind, but only from a north-born barbarian. So we find out that she's the daughter of a king, and that she is, you know, now she's alone and scared.
Yeah, she's just been kind of watching what's been going on.
And she's our, you know, again, not to go too crazy into it, but she's, you know, the audience surrogate in here.
Yep,
you know, we're seeing things through her eyes, and so that's how we're seeing what's happening to Conan, and it gives us a break from being in his perspective, which is really cool too.
Yep.
And it's not like an overly you know, complicated story or anything like that. You know, it's fairly simple, actually. You know, I mean, like, they just kind of take him prisoner, and we know what's going to happen, or at least it's implied what's going to happen. And, you know, now we get a chance to see Conan do his thing, man.
Yeah. And I love this almost silhouette panel, which just got a couple of wisps of reeds and a couple of, you know, reflective light on some rocks and stuff, but there's really not much, you know, other than that. And then she's framed by the light behind her.
These are kind of, you know, like as much as some of these other pages were so rendered, I mean, this page is, you know, mostly figures for the most part, you know, and, you know, even the fire is pretty lightly rendered, but it all makes sense. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he's focusing on setting the scene for us and setting the table, because there's going to be really cool stuff coming up.
Right.
So, of course, she decides that she's going to climb down, and such a plan will have greater chance of success if she is not nearly faint with hunger. Abruptly, Olivia recalls that she hasn't eaten the day before. Thus, steeling herself, she ventures warily from her refuge. So she's going to go try and get, you know, she's got to get down there because she needs something to eat as well, you know?
Yeah.
And so she climbs down and she watches the distant ruins until the dusk of night masks all but the flickering flames. It is time. But first, on impulse, she steals back to the northern edge of the cliffs. And as she strains her eyes in the dim starlight, panic claws at her throat. Far below her, something moves.
Dun, dun, dun.
And so we know that there's going to be something super cool that we're going to see, and yet we're still in her perspective. And this is a chance, I feel like, for them to really, you know, have some fun, show some action, you know, and be on her for a little while and draw a pretty girl. Because who doesn't want to watch a pretty girl? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So she's going to come into this temple, you know, she's terrified of it, yet she's going to go in to save Conan.
A faint grin touches Conan's hard lips. For as lightly as she come, he heard her long before. She all but sobs with joy to see him, bound yet wide awake. So nothing fools Conan. He knew she was coming. He could hear her coming from a mile away.
Yeah. As the moonlight touches the feet of a pirate, and he moans in his uneasy sleep. Just the little moonlight's about to wake these guys. Better get the hell out of there.
And it's such a cool way, too, to, you know, show that just by, you know, leaving some white on the page and giving us some lines and some dark. I mean, like, it's nothing too crazy, man, but it tells the story really well. And again, you've got these really creepy statues, man.
Yeah. In the meantime, they go out and they meet this ape man that doesn't have anything to do really with the statues, right?
Right.
Look at this face. What a great example of, you know, collaboration with the inking and John Buscema's penciling. You know, it was great already, you can tell.
And it's such a fun chance to, like, make it a monster story too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, get all the elements in here, man. There's a little bit of supernatural, there's a little bit of pirates, action, adventure. It's, you know,
monsters, yeah. Cuts his arm off. This thing is not joking around. It's got him by the hair.
And I love how even he's got him by the hair with, you know, half his arm off and bleeding, you know? Yeah. It's so good.
And this thing is not going down without a fight. Conan stabs it. He's, you know, it's still fighting. And
all the while, Conan's sword sinks again and again into the groin, the breast, the belly of his attacker.
Oh, the groin. Come on, man.
Yeah, man. That's not cool.
Yeah. Cut off his arm, stab him in the gut, but the groin.
You don't stab a guy in the dick, man.
Now, this page is like the line work is very thick on it compared to the rest of them. I wonder if it just printed weird or what.
I don't know. I mean, it could be that they, you know, maybe he was powdering out a little bit on this page.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, that definitely happens. Happens to the best of us.
And I mean, like, if you look at the next page as well, it's also a little bit more, it looks like maybe a little bit more brush ink and a little bit,
yeah.
you can see in the, you can see in like some of the textures of the drapery, it's a little bit more sparse.
Interesting.
And yet you still get these in the bottom. And if you go back one page, if you still see that you get like, you know, some of that textured rendering in there, especially in that bottom right where the ship is and at the temple, but it's definitely not as detailed as it was.
It almost looks like in this page, like it almost looked like John inked that, yet at the same time,
totally.
Maybe they had like handed it off, or like he was going slow, so they're like, John, ink some of the faces or something on here and let him handle it so it's cohesive.
It may have been that they needed to just start, you know, double teaming it.
Yeah, it could be. Because then we get to this page and we're back.
Yep. It's back, and you know, that's it.
Yep.
And
now the things came to life in the temple, right? Did I miss something?
Yes. And that was in the dream, though, I believe.
Oh, I thought it happened again and it took out
some. Oh wait, no, I know it was. Yeah, they ran away from them. Yeah. That is what it was.
And so now Conan, they like, please, Conan, let us come aboard. He got to the ship and he wasn't going to let anybody on, and so he's like, okay, now I'm the boss.
And now they've set him up for the next story where he's a pirate king.
Totally.
It's amazing.
Fiend. Yeah, that's
and it's
great.
Just really fun, man. I mean, like, and you know, it's one of those stories that it feels like it could have been written in the 30s. I mean, I don't know if I think it may have been an adaptation.
It is.
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah,
I know Roy Thomas adapted a lot of these, but it feels so pulpy.
Yeah, it says A Forgotten Horror by Robert E. Howard, adapted by Roy Thomas. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get this is a treat for you, too. You didn't get to see this Corbin Conan section, which is really cool.
Oh, man. Absolutely beautiful, dude.
I mean, you can't reproduce his, paintings very well at this time, but
even so, though, I mean, like the values of the grays are just incredible.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
6-issue subscription was $6.50.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
And then it's got a backup story here by story and art by Gil Kane, which is also really cool. I just kind of zoomed through it, but a lot of screen tone on it.
I actually really love Gil Kane's Conan. It's a very different approach from Barry Windsor Smith and John Buscema.
It's like very
it's really
panels, No
it's really interesting because a few months back, Hoche Anderson was posting a lot of pencils and just a lot of practice that Gil Kane had done that he had seen while he was visiting with Gary Groth. And you can really see how how that practice shows up on the pages like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's Gil Kane was so good at what he did. And yet,
What year was this?
Oh, gosh, that is a good question.
1975.
Yeah, 75.
So would Chaykin have been his assistant then, or would he have already struck out on his own? Because first thing I know of Chaykin would have been 77, right, with Star Wars.
Right, and I think because I know that he had done some sword and sorcery for DC, Chaykin had in 72, 73. So I think he may have been on his own at this point.
Well, if anybody that's watching knows the answer to that, just curious as to if he had any fingers in this, because it feels like it.
It does. Yeah.
And also whether or not he might, you know, to reach out to him, he might know the answer to like why it's, you know, done with the typesetting and all that.
It's so interesting. I mean, like that's not a normal approach for these stories. Most of them are you know, hand lettered and look more like comic book stories. That definitely does look a little bit more like experimentation.
Right. Man, I'm gonna write into this. Retire before 50.
When I planned.
So cool. Wow. Well, that's a great issue, man. I see why you love it, you know? And I think other people will see why too.
It's fun. It kind of has everything that you want in a Conan story.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, I've always been a big fan of the partnership of Buscema and Alcala, and I love to see when they're both firing on all cylinders. And I
And
really
they
feel
are
like,
on that one. Yeah.
yeah, I really feel like this is one of the ones where it was like, you know, they really, at least for the first couple of chapters, you know, does seem maybe like they were powdering out a little bit near the end, but you know, it makes sense when you're on a deadline, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it happens. Um, well, it makes me want to read more of these things. I know when I go back home to visit my mom, there's like a used bookstore that has just like a million of these things for like $3 each or something.
Yeah,
So
I can you can usually find these for, you know, I $5 to $10 an
yeah,
issue.
this isn't. Yeah, this was probably about 10, I think, off of eBay because it's an early issue, number
Yeah.
4. You know, so
Yeah, but they're, you know, obviously, you know, some of them are a little bit more well known or have more well known stories, or,
yeah,
you know, they might be up to like $20, but they're worth picking up. I mean, I think that
totally.
they're at least as good as heavy metal, and they were, you know, kind of the precursor to heavy metal
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
yep.
And you know, really you get a lot of interesting artists in Savage Sword of Conan. So I would recommend everybody going out and picking some up.
Well, I certainly will. Well, thanks for coming back on, dude. This was really cool. It's cool issue to talk about.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. It's always a blast.
Absolutely, man. All right, we'll talk to you again. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my Patreon, where at the $3 level, I'll send you my sketchbook, The Sketch of the Masters. And at the $5 level, I'll send you the sketchbook plus my mini stories, not Man nor Beast, but Moss, Stench of the Sea, and The Voyeur. At the $8 level, after a year, you'll get a commission. Don't forget to sign up for my newsletter in the show notes. Check out my store, where I have lots of original art. And you can also buy books like Lost Angels, a sci-fi YA adventure about a girl who has to solve a mystery in a crashed alien city. Spectral, a showcase of fear, is about a sinister puppet master who travels from town to town telling tales to children who may never sleep again. You can request a commission at any time just by contacting me. Here is a list of the upcoming conventions that I'll be at the time that this video was released. And don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the video. Again, thanks for watching.